Alright, so we're going to continue going through quadratics now, and we're going to look at a little bit more of what we looked at in grade 10, which was just solving quadratic equations. This is a big part of the course in grade 10, and it's definitely a big skill going forward. And again, your process for solving quadratic equations really does depend what kind of form you're in. If you're in factored form, you're happy. You can say each factor is 0 and solve. We're going to do examples of all these again. If you're in vertex form, that's one of the ones where there's only one instance of x. You just rearrange the equation and solve for x. And if you're in standard form, you have a lot of options. You can use quadratic formula to solve. You can factor it if possible, or you can complete the square, put into vertex form, then do the solving for x. But lots of different approaches here, and we'll take a look at each one. So for this one, we're trying to find the zeros of 5x plus 4, 7 minus 3x. So remember, if we're trying to find the zeros, that means that y equals 0. And if you look at the equation, we are in factored form. And once we're in there, that makes it a lot easier, right? So we're going to take each of our factors here, set them equal to 0, and solve. So we're getting an equation where 5x plus 4 equals 0. And another one where we have 7 minus 3x equals 0. In each of these situations, we can rearrange the equation and solve for x. So from this one, we get x equals negative 4 over 5. And here we're going to get x equals 7 over 3. Okay, it's not too much work when we've got our two zeros here. Okay, those are the ones that are nice and easy. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so now, again, we're trying to find the zeros. So we're going to be in, and we're in vertex form this time. So again, for the zeros, y or f of x equal to 0. And like I mentioned back on the flowchart a couple slides ago, the nice thing about vertex form is there's only one x appearing in the equation. If there's only one x, we can rearrange the equation and solve either using a flowchart or just by using straight algebra. So I'm going to use algebra here, so I'm just going to start solving. So I'm going to add 40 to each side of the equation first. So I get 40. So 40 is now on the left side of the equation. And I'm just going to keep solving for x. So I'm going to divide both sides here by 4 to get 10. And then take the square root. So when I take the square root, I get plus or minus. Can't forget that plus or minus, or else we lose the solution. So I get plus or minus root 10 being x plus 5. And just to finish off, subtract the 5 from both sides of the equation. So you get two possible answers, plus or minus root 10 minus 5. So again, remind yourself that means that we have one x-intercept at root 10 minus 5 and the other one at negative root 10 minus 5. Okay, let's try and take a look at this in a word problem context here. So we're trying to find the break-even quantities for a profit function. Profit function's in standard form, x are quantities sold in thousands. Now, remind yourself that break-even means that you're neither gaining money or losing money, so it means that our profit is equal to 0. So it's really just a fancy way of asking for the zeros of this equation. So you get 0, negative 6x squared, plus x plus 40. So your options here, it's in standard form, so you can factor it if it's possible. You can use a quadratic formula to get your solutions, or you can, if you want to, complete the square, put it into vertex form, then solve from there. I would suggest seeing if it factors first. Remember, you can always check if it factors by doing the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So if we do that, we get 1 squared minus 4 times negative 6 times 40. Okay, and when you do that, you get 961. Now you want to check if this is a perfect square, so put it in your calculator. Square root of 961 gives you 31. It's a nice whole number, so it does factor. So you could, if you wanted to use an array. If you find that the process, because it's a complex trinomial, takes too long, you may just want to use the quadratic formula anyways, because remember, we don't actually need factored form here. All we need is the actual zeros. So whatever method you find easier at this point, I'm going to try and factor. So to make my factoring easier, I'm going to take out the common factor of negative 1 out here first. So I'm working with 6x squared minus x minus 40. Okay, so take a minute and either factor or use quadratic formula and check the answer when you're ready. Okay, so I did factoring here. I got it factored into 3x minus 8, 2x plus 5. So from each of those factors, I got a solution. Now, one thing to remember here, remember what x was. It was the quantity sold in thousands. So we have 8 over 3 times 1,000 items sold. Now, negative 5 over 2 doesn't actually make any sense. We can't sell a negative number of items. So this one is actually inadmissible or invalid, however you want to call it. Okay, so your only solution would be x equals 8 over 3. And remember that's in thousands, so 8 over 3 times 1,000 items sold would make them break even.